I didn't see you there. My name is John Green, 3.0, and this is our Slam Course History Project.
Hey, John Green 1.0 here. At the time that the Mongol Empire began to form, the world was more connected than ever, with trade taking place between Europe and Asia quite regularly. The world of Christianity and Islam were colliding in the Crusades, and China was broken, as it was throughout most of history. In the steppe of Mongolia, the people are split up between different tribes in a constant state of warfare amongst each other, with no common goals or leadership among them. That is until a young Mongol by the name of Temujin began to gain support and win over the hearts and minds of people all throughout the steppe. He would become more commonly known as Genghis Khan. The Mongol Empire played a major role in the advancements of civilization surrounding it, through a combination of the empire's military strategy, the dependence of civilizations of the Mongolian Empire during its reign, and the modern policies implemented across the vast empire which strengthened the rule. So the Mongols used a unique military strategy that allowed them to conquer vast amounts of territory at an alarming rate. So they waged war with bows and arrows from atop horsebacks as they charged full speed at their enemy forces. Since they were nomadic peoples, the Mongols were already extremely skilled with their horses, and since many Mongol children were taught to shoot and ride before the age of 10, they were already a deadly force to be reckoned with. With Genghis Khan's arrival to power, he would build upon some of these tactics to create an even more efficient army. Typically, warfare in the steppe went a little something like this. A horde of Mongol warriors would ride into an enemy camp and take them by surprise. After the initial assault, however, the battle would quickly devolve into chaos, mass slaughter, and looting, giving the other tribes a chance to rally for a counterattack. And so the attacking force would suffer an unnecessary loss of life. When Genghis Khan came to power, he conducted these raids a little bit differently. He decided to implement a rule that his army would not begin looting until his enemies were completely annihilated. After this came into effect, his forces would wipe out their enemies' entire force so that they would not be able to counterattack his own forces. After their enemy had been completely destroyed, all the loot would be collected and Genghis Khan would distribute the supplies among his armies. Now, his forces had more incentive to truly fight and win, since they now had a guaranteed chance of gaining something from the attacks. Despite these changes to Mongol warfare, it was not enough to conquer the great walled cities of China. To overcome this obstacle, Genghis Khan began to look to those he had conquered. He began to welcome people with open arms if they possessed a skill that his army had a need for. Because of this, the Mongols learned to build siege weapons at cities, and using these, they would enter a city, and by the time they were in, the city had likely surrendered. Since the Mongol horde now had the ability to build siege weapons on the move, many cities simply began to surrender to the Mongols in hopes of being spared from their rampage. Despite welcoming many to his ranks, Genghis Khan also had a cruel strategy that he introduced to limit the possibility of rebellion or uprising against him. Whenever he occupied a city, he made it a point to execute all leaders, aristocrats, and resisting soldiers, as they were the most likely to start an uprising against him. He continued killing anyone of importance in every city he conquered, which, brutal as it may have been, did prevent any major uprisings against him. In one instance, when he defeated the tribe that had killed his father years before, the enemy force surrendered in droves, far more than he could take into his ranks. His solution to the problem was to have every man stand next to a wagon. If they stood higher to the axle, they were beheaded.
What's up, guys? John Green 2.0 here. I'm gonna start now. Although the Mongol Empire is the largest empire to ever exist on the face of this earth, unfortunately, it can't last forever. Shortly before Genghis Khan's death in 1227, he granted his 4 sons Khan titles and wished for them to lead the Mongol Empire when he died. But when he did, things did not go according to plan. Shortly after his death, the unification of the Mongol nations began to collapse. His 4 sons did everything in their power to keep the Mongol Empire intact, but to no avail. This resulted in some of Genghis Khan's sons and grandsons to lead 4 new territories of the Mongol Empire. One of these new territories, the Golden Horde, led by Genghis Khan's grandson, Batu, lived a more settled life than the 3 other territories. of the Mongol Empire. This increased civil attitude with the Mongol Empire, resulting in large trading cities with the mass amount of populations the Mongols were not usually used to seeing. One of those other territories was the Khanate Empire, led by Hulega, a grandson of Genghis. The Khanates largely grew their empire from creating connections, mostly trading, between Europe and the rest of Asia. The Yuan Empire is another one of those split territories, led by Ogadai, one of Genghis Khan's sons. He conquered most of China in the Jin Empire with the help of the Song Empire. After they did that, they decided that they should conquer their close allies, which is the Song Empire. After 100 years, they eventually did. The Yuans were also responsible for being the first group of people in history to create paper money, which strengthened their economy greatly. The last empire of those split territories is the Chagatai Khanate, led by Chagatai, one of Genghis Khan's sons. It was located in modern-day Turkey, Kazakhstan. The Chagatai Khanate is particularly strong because of the Silk Road and how it ran right through it, therefore strengthening the state of this Khan. In the end, the Mongol Empire didn't stand a chance due to the death of the founder, Genghis Khan, and the fact that the empire was insanely huge, leaving those 4 territories as a result.
Hey guys! John Green 3.0 here.
The Mongols used their administrative techniques and policies which paved the way for a strong political, economic, societal, and cultural structure. As the Mongolian Empire grew off of its own momentum without any clear goals, and with each conquest gained unification from surrounding tribes into a significant Mongolian force, the question emerged as to how the land would be governed. The Mongols developed one of the first centralized bureaucracies. This bureaucracy contained specialized offices and roles for various levels in the Mongol and, to an extent, conquered peoples. From administrative and management positions to scribes who translated the various languages of the empire, such as Persian, Chinese, and Tibetan, the centralized bureaucracy brought about new kinds of structure for the empire in the capital of Karakorum. In addition to the new political implements into the newfound empire, elaborate systems for economics were implemented, paving the way for the largest and most impressively constructed empire. One of the keys to the Mongol success lied in their speedy ability to mobilize people/armies and the material resources throughout their massive empire due to their Silk Road system. The Mongols redesigned the Silk Road, incorporating means to make the system both safe and efficient. Around a day's ride apart, relay stations were constructed throughout the Silk Road to provide rapid communication and resource deliveries between the empire. Around 10,000 of these stations were built, having a total of 200,000 horses available for government officials and authorized personnel. These stations contained rations, beds, and fresh clothing, plus horses for messengers and merchants. Because of the quickness of information being passed by these relays, Mongol leaders often knew about potential strikes from opposing armies or beginnings of uprisings and were able to crush them before those groups were able to fully mobilize. In the societal aspect of their civilization, the Mongols were surprisingly open to all types of people. Caring for their people, Mongol rulers often allowed various merchants free access to relay stations for transporting their goods. They also could be paid around 10% more for their goods since prices were always low. For administrating conquered land, Mongols obviously held the highest positions. However, in lower positions, it was common to hire native people, such as Chinese, Muslims, and Persians. For these cultural matters, the Mongols were again surprisingly lenient and open to all types of religion. Due to their idols only having power and presence in their homeland, Mongols expected other people to have other gods and gave religious tolerance. Religions and philosophies such as Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, and Taoism were welcomed and supported as long as it did not intrude on the political aspect of society. This policy of religious toleration allowed these practices, especially Islam and Christianity, to thrive within the empire, even converting Mongolian troops on occasion. And now it's time for our mystery doc. So as you can see, this image right behind me is of one of Genghis Khan's earlier camps when he was still trying to reunify Mongolia. Now during this time frame, from the late 1100s to early 1200s, Genghis Khan's influence began to rise and sweep across the Mongolian tribes. Up till around 1203, Mongolia had a split warring tribal confederations. Without being united, these Mongol tribes were quite primitive, never working together for benefits nor advancements. Because of his unique focus on performance rather than family ties, Genghis Khan gained the trust of and respect from his followers. He soon united these tribes due to his strategic skill and the military doctrine and control over his men. Now, the point of view of this image is most likely a painter that lived during the later years in the Mongolian Empire, such as when Genghis's grandsons were ruling. Now, you want to know why it's important? Well, I'll tell you why it's important. Throughout history, periods such as periods in 3 were established due to the similar inventions and lifestyles of all the civilizations within the period. However, the Mongolian Empire is the greatest exception to this thought process. The doctrines of Genghis, such as his complex emotions of extreme kindness and his feats of huge proportions in conquered land, non-stationary empire, huge strides in administrative techniques, military implications, and ruling strategies, are the likes that have never been seen before.
Though the lifetime of the Mongol Empire was extremely short when compared with other nations of its time, they will continue to captivate historians' imaginations for years to come. Even though it was short-lived, they still managed to create the largest contiguous empire in human history. They had a stable system in which people enjoyed fairly prosperous lives, if they managed to survive the initial assault. They broke every normality in the usual history of empires in almost every way imaginable, with the most notable being that these people were nomadic, whereas their rivals had settled down into massive cities and great colonies. The Mongols created no technological advancements, built no monuments nor long-lasting cities, had no long-lasting civilization, and left behind no new nor groundbreaking cultures or religions. But what they did leave behind is a legacy, one of the seemingly impossible progress they made while being led by some of the most brutal warlords in history. They truly were history's great exception.
Creating connections, mostly trading, between Europe and the rest of Asia. The Yuans were responsible for being the first group of people in history to create paper money, although the Mongol Empire is the largest empire to ever exist. Wait, I need to do an intro. Heck. He granted his 4 sons Khan titles and visited them. Trading cities with mass amounts of populations. The Mongols, which were not usually... Wait. No!
Military strategy allowing it to conquer civilizations.
Alright, we'll go from there.
That's a skill that his army had a need for. Because of this, the Mongols learned to build siege weapons. I shouldn't have paused.
Now, why is this important? Well, I'll tell you why this is important. Throughout history, such as in period 3, major things changed. You want to know what those things were? Well, the Mongols, they established, due to the similar I don't know, I said go!
I can't see it.